Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this edition of LinkedIn Live. I'm your host, Suresh GP from TaUB Solutions, and I look forward to a great session today on the topic of leveraging gamification to improve your business results. Now, before I get kick started, I would like to know there are a lot of people who are joining us from different parts of the globe. So I want to understand where you are in this journey and how you are geared up to know about gamification. So if you are just joined in and if you're looking forward to an interesting conversation about gamification, please put on the comment sections of where you are dialing from and what are your expectations on this program. As people join in, I want to kind of share what we want to present today in terms of the content, the agenda for us today, and seeing how we can make this more fruitful for this community, right? So today we are going to talk about introduction to gamification because a lot of people are very new to this concept of gamification. They have actually played some Candy Crush and Angry Birds, but it's much more than just the games that you play. We're going to talk about the gamification techniques and examples of how you can start applying. We're going to spend some considerable time on the aspect of business simulations because the business simulations are focused on experiential learning. So, if you are learning a particular framework or a best practice, instead of teaching people death by PowerPoint, we put them into an experiential scenario where they're able to appreciate, have fun, and also get a desirable experience around it. We'll talk a little bit about some of those real life use cases that we have done for clients globally, how to create high performance teams. As I start to coach and consult people across the globe, there's a lot of pressure to improve productivity, improve the user experience, improve the customer experience, but also they are looking at creating high performance teams. So if you are a human resource leader, if you are a business leader who wants to build a key capability within your team and produce high performing teams, then how can you leverage gamification to be an assisting guide to make an impact? We will talk about how to master the gamification at your workplace. So today we are in a hybrid model. So a lot of people are no longer glued to one workspace. So how do we do a hybrid model of gamification? And I'm also going to do a small demo of our product on Axilium of how you can build some of those top-notch skills that are required to be a digital leader, and how you can build capabilities around your managers, your team leaders, and employees to become next level of leaders. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Axilium platform and some of those skills that we can impart and some of the lessons learned by implementing gamifications for people across the globe. And we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So that's the overall agenda that I want to cover today. I hope this would be a definitive use for you today, that you can see it as an example. And what I also want to ask people is that if you have any questions, do not hesitate to post your questions, because the whole intent of this LinkedIn Live series is to create awareness, knowledge sharing, and give back to the community, right? Some of the lessons learned in as TaUB Solutions has completed 9 years. We wanted to share some best practices, and I hope that gives you a lot more momentum in building that forward. With that, I'm going to kind of kickstart our session here on the leveraging the power of gamification to improve business results. So a little bit of background. I just talked about the agenda. A little bit of background about myself. I'm the managing director of TaUB Solutions. I've also been a global ambassador of the DevOps Institute. I'm also the co-author of Site Reliability Engineering workshop, as well as Site Reliability Engineering practitioner and observability workshops. I speak in conferences on thought leadership. Spent about 22 plus years in the industry. Started with service management, I've been doing a lot of work off late in agile DevOps and site reliability engineering. And people who know I'm a big fan of business relationship management along with gamification. So we have a game for Grab a Pizza that we played for business relationship management as well. So over the years, I've also had the honor of being a top 25 thought leader awarded by HDI, and I'm also a recipient of 4 Excellence Award at Washington, D.C. Now, as we start to step in, I want to give you a little bit of clients. So these are a partial list of global clients that we deal. As you know, Top Solutions as a consulting company is based in India, Singapore, and the US. And we work with large financial organizations. We work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with um, consulting organizations to build capabilities, right? So we focus on consulting, training, business simulations, and implementation services. We also have seen a lot of our clients spread over different geographies. In Africa, we have had people from South America. We have had people from the Middle East. So we have had lots and lots of experience playing with global clients and also understanding cultural nuances. Because if you're a global company who have people across different geographies, this would be a great icebreaker where you bring in cross-functional teams together, where people are able to understand and appreciate how this can be dealt in real world, right? We also have seen, and we just completed our workshop. You've seen my post with Driscoll's. We did have a great opportunity to work with IT and the HR folks on two games, which is one was Masslander and the other one was the Grab a Pizza. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But we are seeing increasingly our clients asking for simulation games. We did sometime in 2018, we did with MTN Nigeria, we did the Phoenix Project simulations. And I think this is a much more creative way for making people understand how to apply things in a non-IT scenario, right? So that's been a list of things. So if I ask you this question, this term called gamification, right? What does it quickly resonate with, right? Some of you have had experience playing the games like Candy Crush, Angry Birds, and some of those games, board games as well. A lot of times, games make you feel having fun. It is associated with rewards, like you get badges, you get some points, you go better and better, like level 1 to level 2 to go. There's an increasing amount of engagement index that happens when you gamify things, right? So there is a spirit of sportsmanship that people want to be doing well and have fun in the process. So it's been there for a quite some time, and it has created a lot of interest among working professionals and IT people. So I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of how has games transformed in a lot of in organization. This was way back in January 2015, where I was at the London Heathrow Airport. Instead of having a boring satisfaction survey, they have this board which talks about what is the security waiting time. Is it less than 5 minutes? Is it less than 10 minutes? Right. So this is showing you red, amber, green, and people have a lot more understanding of how things are working without going into much more details on the specifics, right? So it's a good way to create people's awareness, visibility in how things work. This was in, I think it was in Denmark, ITSM of Denmark, where I was doing a presentation in 2015. This was also on gamification. And at one point of the board that I was on the leaderboard, right? This was basically, if you look at conferences, a lot of conferences wants to improve engagement. So what they ask you is to share the post of the speakers of some of the nuggets in social media and stuff, so people know what's happening around. So it's a good way to share knowledge, make people incentivize to look at sharing knowledge in the way of doing it, because everybody loves to be at the part of the leaderboard. It was one point in time, so I thought that would be a good way to look at it. Everybody loves to be having fun and having a festive spirit of it, right? This is one of the things that a lot of people ask me. Okay, gamification. Okay, that seems to be fun, but is there a real scientific reason why would you promote gamification? So for people who are very logical and who want to have a substantial proof before you can deep dive into gamification, a study of the effect of gamification on the brain illustrates a few key facets. The first one is increase in motivation levels, right? So as you play these games, whatever games that you play, there is a dopamine that is, which is often associated with pleasure, gets released as part of the sessions. And what happens is you get a feeling of accomplishment, right? There's also, when you have this experience of victory, you see that there is a huge push towards testosterone, which is like the adrenaline glands release testosterone, which is very useful in improving your self-esteem and mood in how we operate, right? The third part that has also been proven is that when people are fully engrossed, engaged in some of these simulation games, their ability to remember things, right? Because you are seeing with all senses, you are all the senses of visual, audio, kinesthetic in place. So your ability to retain facts, retain those learnings is absolutely memorable. So there's a huge push towards improved learning opportunities, improved memory aspects, and there's also proof that a lot of gray cell matter improves. You know, if you have read the book called Ikigai, it talks about people who stay more than 100 years. They also keep learning in their life, and that gives them an opportunity to grow their gray cell matter, and they live active ever. So this is a great way to keep yourself engrossed. In fact, we as a family, we benchmarked on board games ever since COVID brought us all together, and we find a lot more amusement when we play this board games like Ticket to Ride, Catan, and a lot of board games, and it's so much fun, right? So I think you should use some of this gamification not just from your workplace but also at your personal life. Then you'll probably relate to what I'm talking about, and hope that kinds of gives you a meaning of how this can be played out. The other aspect that I think is going to be important for all of us is appreciating the overall system in a manner that it could be more practical in nature. So games make things more realistic, right? So there's different kind of tools and techniques that get involved in the games. So there are game inspired designs. There are some serious games. You're going to focus only on the section of serious games, right? How are serious games going to help you to achieve that desirable results, right? So we are looking at teaching simulation games, helping people to learn by doing some techniques, meaning and purpose, right? So apparently gamification helps you to get people motivated, right? If you look at Maslow's theory of needs, we have different levels of emotions that we want to think through, understand, and appreciate. So you go from the core of ensuring your safety, security, health, and psychological needs are met. Then you go into that level of emotional needs. So a lot of these gamification that we do with workplaces is to understand the emotional aspects of how we can play that to resonate with their philosophy, principles, and values, right? And it's been a great booster for a lot of these culturally enriching sessions perspective. So, what is serious games all about? So, professional business simulations or serious games are interactive workshops in which the teams of employees work on challenging issues within a stimulated environment, right? So, the environment can be same in the same context in what we do, or it could be something different. So, sometimes we have a game called Mars Lander where you go to Mars, but you apply the principles of service management. So, instead of telling it purely towards an IT centric term, we want to take you into a journey where you're able to put yourself into that shoes and see this whole big picture of how this can be more meaningfully dealt with, right? So why is a simulation must have, right? And if you look at the reasons why we need to have a simulation, the first and foremost thing is it focuses on behaviors, interaction, teamwork, and communications. A lot of leaders whom I talk with says that in the hybrid model, right, a lot of people don't even show their cameras, right? So they are behind the Teams, behind Zoom, behind WebEx, It's all not very sure about their body language. It's very difficult for people to contemplate. Are they knowing what they want to do it? And it becomes very difficult. So how do you help to continually apply your knowledge and skills in that area? And we do the 70-20-10 rule. We believe the best learning happens on the job experience, right? And then you have mentoring and coaching. So instead of talking people on DevOps and Agile, on site reliability engineering, on BRM, why don't we play a game for people to understand why we need to have these skills? What kind of competency are we going to build? How is it going to be applied? So the application part is where I think the simulation games take a larger part of it. So I want to take a pause here to see if there are any questions. And if you've just joined, please put it on the chat window as to where you're joining from and which part of the world, and what would be your takeaways that you want to learn from this session on gamification, because we want to tailor this LinkedIn Live to your real needs up to it. So please put your comments on where you're dialing from, so we will all know. Typically, we have people, about 30-40 people joining in from all different parts. And I know it's all December Eve and you're all preparing for a holiday season. So we wanted to ensure that this balance in the December Eve is more focused on having fun and games, right? So I hope this simulation part is clear. We will be taking questions as it comes to when we see through this, and we also when as we start to apply this, we will have a better understanding of how this can be applied in a real world, right? So we have about 10 different games that we play with our clients, right? As you know, Top Solutions focuses on IT management best practices. So, be it in service management, agile, DevOps, lean, either it's Six Sigma, we focus on business relationship management, cybersecurity. So, we have games for every domain, right? So, we have a game for BRM as a grab a pizza. If you're looking at IT service management, we can do an Apollo 13 or a Mars lander. If it's looking at agile project management, we can do Challenge of Egypt. You heard about the famous Phoenix project. We have a simulation called Phoenix project. So if you want to know about DevOps, we do a lot of things for leaders. We have also Phoenix for business. So if you have business leaders who want to know about DevOps, that is a perfect way to put them into this game. It's probably about 3 to 4 hours if we do it with business leaders, and we get a lot of inputs in how this can be managed and overall run through this, right? So typically, a game is spread over one full day. That these are physical games that we do. We also have online games that we will talk about in the future. So we have a blended model that you can play physical games as well as online games, because considering that people are distributed across different part of geographies, right? So why is business simulations very important? This is from Confucius, right? I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. So Confucius talks about a very important element called the power of remembering, right? So when you do some games and we relate it to a real world experience, your opportunity to learn and update things are pretty fast, right? So you really enjoy the whole learning experience to be more powerful, right? So how does gamification work? And we work with companies like Gaming Works, SXP Simulation. We work with Axelium. These are providers who provide games for us. We really love the power of gamification, and we think that it's the best way to create cultural change. So the model is very simple, right? So we go and understand your problem, right? Which problem are you trying to solve? What is your learning objective? So this could be with your learning and development. This could be the HR leader or a business leader. What kind of behaviors you want to see? People say we want to have people more collaborative, more communicative, more sense of urgency, taking sense of ownership. Now, these are behaviors that you have to see on the ground, putting them into a situation. What kind of competencies you need to build? And for that, once you start doing to understand your problem, your wish behavior, and competencies, we do this as part of our discovery session. Then we start focusing on a simulation game. Now, the simulation game is more focused on one of these games that we talked about. So, are you going to focus on a particular framework or a best practice or a learning objectives? We can kind of tailor that. And then, as we start to do the simulation, it could be one day, half a day, online, hybrid. we start asking people to reflect how has been their experience from round one to two to three to four, and then we put them to the test, right? So the round one is typically chaotic because they're getting to use the game. They want to understand how the game works, but after that they get better, right? But they also know that their current competencies are not adequate to win. So they need to work with a team. They need to ask for help. They need to collaborate and communicate with teams, get the information from them, and see how we can function that. And then we have had done a survey with our business leaders of clients, and I asked them, in ITIL we talk about value, outcome, cost, and risk. If you look at worldwide, and this is a report from Gaming Works, there's only 3% of organizations worldwide are doing something called measurement of value and outcome. Otherwise, it's just tick in the box. We put them into a training course. They all did the training. They got a certificate, and nothing happens, right? So we don't want to stop your people from just getting a certificate. We want them to go into the next level of conversation and see how they can put their learning to actual practice. I hope this is the basis in which we are talking about the simulation games and gamification. So understand the objective, look at the wish or behavior that you want to inculcate, competencies, and look at the game. So it's not just about theory. We can also blend with a training course. So we can do it with a service management, a RITL foundation course, a mass land assimilation, or a DevOps foundation course with Phoenix project. So you can do a blend of just the games as a standalone, or you can blend it along with the learning with people, right? Learning with that particular framework in place. So this is one example that I want to show you. One of the client that we were working had this problem called we have dissatisfied customers, right? How many of you can relate that? A lot of times customers just leave without telling that they're frustrated. Sometimes your systems are not available. We have unplanned outages, right? So people are just sick and tired of systems not being available. A lot of money being wasted. Staff get frustrated because they're doing routine jobs. And I said, okay, these are your problems. We understand that. What kind of behaviors you want to improve for your team, right? So the list was, we want our employees to be customer focused. We want all the incidents to be recorded in ServiceNow, for example. We want to make sure the support staff are very proactive, right? We want to prioritize things on ground. We want to improve the quality of resolutions. We want to give direct feedback. And all of those stuff that we are talking about is just making people aware that this is all covered in theory, but in reality, nothing happens. And that's why people get frustrated. So when we do these simulation games, we make them understand, reflect upon what went right, what went wrong, and they start improving with some action items. So every round one, two, three, and four, they do reflection like continual improvement. I allow this team to go and talk with each other and then give them the feedback, and then they start pushing themselves into that particular zone, right? So that way you have a good visibility of the problem statement that you have currently as an organization. What are your desirable behaviors that you want to inculcate, and then put them into that particular zone to see how this can be worked upon, right? So any questions from anybody? Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Rao, joining us from California. Suresh joining us from Chennai, India. Jeff joining us from Idaho, right? And I had the good fortune to meet Jeff and Keith along with Kali in the BRM Connect. So great to see you all. And we're going to kind of see how this simulation games are improving our capability building exercise, right? The other aspect that I think is going to be important is to give you real use case of how we went about doing gamification on the ground and seeing how that resulted in desirable results, right? So this was a company, a large company based in the US. They had an offshore center in India. What was the feedback from the client was the service desk is failing miserably. They are losing 25% customer every 3 months, right? So this is strikingly very difficult proposition. So what they also saw was there was a lot of turnover of people, relatively new task force. so they were not able to get results. They were wanted to focus on customer responsiveness, technical prowess, and communication failures, because these were the three top reasons why the customer felt they were not doing a good job. So this was a client came back to us and said, Suresh, we want to do this simulation game to see if we can know the truth of how things are operating, right? And we said, yes, let's do that. So look at these ABC cards and looked at some of those scenarios where they said there's no respect for understanding customers and users, right? This is part of Gaming Works ABC cards. We talk about attitude, behavior, culture. So we asked them what are the undesirable behaviors they have. Oh, you know what? They provide a knowledge base, they put it into the limelight, and we hope and pray everything works. In reality, it doesn't happen, right? So throwing solutions over and hoping something happens doesn't really work. So how can we create that desirable behaviors to do that? So what we wanted to know was, we just didn't believe just what the client said. We went to the teams, and it was in Chennai. I still remember I went there and I spoke to them and asked them, hey, you know what? What's the problem, right? And some of the people had problems in language because they were not very comfortable speaking in English. So there was some technical knowledge, because a lot of times these people are L1 support freshers. They don't have a lot of background, and they were like kind of nervous sometimes because it's your first job, so they don't know how the customers perceive things. So there's a lot of teething issues, if I would say, in terms of customer service skills and ownerships of issues at hand. So what we did was we said, okay, let's list down. Okay, let's be very clear when we do the simulation game, what desirable attributes you want us to build, right? So what is the kind of initiative, ownership, teamwork, quality, consistency, collaborations? We said, okay, let's focus on these 6 attributes. Okay, during the simulation game, we will see if these attributes show up, right? If it's going good, bad, or ugly, and then we will start them to take a conversation. So we don't teach people. They tell us, what went right, what went wrong, and they will eventually highlight these attributes. And then we ask this question, okay, if it's people are not talking, they are working in silos, what do we do? And how do you build teamwork? Oh, we need to talk with each other. We need to have a stand-up meeting. Okay, let's do it, right? So don't talk about theory. Let's see how you can put some of those learning back into a place. And that's an area that I think is important to also realize for that. So once you clearly identify these are the desirable attributes that I want to focus, we play the game. In this case, it was the Apollo 13, which is one of the flagship products which we deliver for service management people. If you started from ITIL version 2, we start doing that. And if you are in ITIL 4, we now talk about value streams with Mars Lander. In fact, I was doing Mars Lander in the service management world a few years before COVID, and people loved it, right? So there's a lot more fun doing experiential learning with the way to do it. So typically what happens is there are role plays. There are people, they have some cards. You typically have your level 1, level 2, level 3 support, suppliers. We relate this whole non-IT scenario to how people work in a traditional support operations, L1, L2, L3, change management and stuff like that. So it's a lot more fun defining people in roles. So we have about 10 to 12 roles people work. And we did this intake session. We heard about the on-site and offshore experience. We identified key issues and deliverables. And we did the ITIL Foundation course, right? Because we said that let's first let them tell them the theory, right, of how ITIL works. And this was way back in 2016, 17. So it was ITIL version 2 days, right, where we did that. And then we said, okay, let's now put them into the journey and then relate back to what they learned. And this is where it becomes very powerful, right? A lot of these focus on customer value, outcome, cost, and risk is all understood when you put them into that experiential journey, right? And people have fun, right? Sometimes they get frustrated. So I sometimes play as a coach. Sometimes I push them hard, depending on how mature the team is. But I also ask these leaders not to participate, because sometimes leaders participate, then they don't see the true selves. They say that you can be observers, or you can probably just do it because you want the employees to have a normal way of working and communicating and building that. So that's the whole aspect of what we did. And what were the business results after we played the game? We saw that there was a huge push towards process adherence. We identified leadership and communication issues. We also improved the customer and service skill set. So they were pretty happy. The client in the US was very happy. He said, "Thank you so much, Suresh and TaUB Solutions, because we didn't realize that we could learn a lot from one day simulation game. People had fun. We've also looked at our areas to improvise and focus on." And that was an aha moment that they saw was a key business results. So I'll stop here to see if I have any questions, comments coming over. Because this is something we need to do is as a collaborative exercise, right? We are not doing it alone. We want to work with the team who are involved and see how we can do this better, right? And as we start to see through this, you can say that there is a much more tangible benefit rather than just having fun, right? A lot of people think that it's going to be fun and we will have some reunion and a part, but they also have a lot of great takeaways as they move across in this section. The next use case that I want to talk about is the business IT alignment. Aaron would kick me out because we in the new world of BRM we talk about business IT convergence, but they were still in those days they were just about business IT alignment. So when we looked at the key issues, we saw poor customer satisfaction scores, 40% of the projects fail, business revenue and profitability were down, people are not motivated, business and IT were not on the same page, right? So typically talk about IT being perceived like an order taker. And the business leader said, Suresh, we want IT to be elevated. We want to really take them to the journey, but I don't think they are at there. They're just doing demand management. They're not doing demand shaping, right? And if you are familiarized with BRM, we talk a lot about shifting your gears from demand management to demand shaping. And how can you get IT on the trawl, right? Otherwise, the leader said we want to go to shadow IT because we don't see the value of IT being in place. Let's not waste our time and energy. Let's get this outsourced. So that was the state in which they brought us into this particular engagement. And we said we should play the grab a pizza, right? It's a pizza company which is going under loss, but we bring in all the business IT functions to work together. So there is a business team that sits on the other side. The IT team sits on the left-hand side. And then I play the role of a CEO, and I say that we need to sell 30 million pizzas on a Super Bowl, right? So how do you ensure that we are able to sell those pizzas and get profitability, right? And sometimes it's very interesting when IT communicates, they talk about server, databases, and other stuff, and businesses, I don't know what you're talking about. So how do we talk the language of the business? How do you understand the business priorities? We have issues when we say that, okay, my system is down, there's a loss of revenue. It's like, what do you mean by that? How do you measure business impact if there is a production issue or an admin issue, right? So it's a very interesting, heart-revelating content that we have when we try to play this game. So there is a service management team, there is a project management team, there is a change management team. They all work together. They all are given a set of cards. They look at their role card, and then they start improving things over a period of time, right? So it's a typical competing priorities. Right? The two teams, the infrastructure team wants to release infrastructure patch updates, and application wants to do an application rollout. But there is a typical change calendar. There's a freeze window, right? You cannot go beyond that. And how do you manage priorities? How do you manage expectations? How do you manage which is most important, right? Because you have limited capacity, you have work in progress limits, constraints. So how do you bring in that level of visibility, right? How do you understand what is important, what is priority, and how do you work through that? And it's so much fun, right? So business demands are increasing. Typically, people are looking at ad hoc projects, planned versus actuals. It's so much fun. It's so much like people run like headless chicken. A lot of fun to watch, but they also understand there's a lot to absorb, right? Because these games will be quite labor intensive in the sense that there's a lot of things on the trot. You learn by doing, and then you improvise it. There's a lot of fun at the end of the day. So one of the things that we did after we did the BRM, simulation games and part of it, and we worked with that client as part of our consulting engagement for 6 months to a year, we saw that the net promoter score started to increase, right? So that was a much more referred way. We saw that, customer satisfaction or NPS is something which is very important. The business revenue profitably grew by 25%, 18% year over year, and they also had 12% increase over customers. So this was very, very appreciative of that part. And 85% of the project started to build on budget and time. And what was one of the interesting part that I realized was the leader came back and said, Suresh, and I think this was somewhere in Washington, D.C., is that, Suresh, um, I want you to make sure that you don't charge me this much for the simulation game next time. I said, did I charge you high? No, no, no. Actually, we got so much value out of the simulation. Even if we our productivity improved by 1%, we'll make $1 million, right? So we really appreciate what you did, and we would be happy to pay you more next time, because that's the value that we got generated. So I was blown away. But when people talk about, we don't have budgets, we don't have these, we are in recession and stuff like that. If you showcase true value to your business partners and show them why this has to be desirably focused on cultural aspects, you will see this phenomenally valuable for people to see that aspect. So I hope that gives you a perspective of how we went about understanding their problem statement, their objectives, their desirable behaviors, do the learning intervention through the simulation game, and work with them on a journey to create key results. A key result doesn't come immediately, right? Because that's where you need to be hand-holding people as part of consulting, coaching, to get somewhere. But that's a good starting point, because then everybody starts to focus on, oh, you know what? There has to be a paradigm shift in the way we work things to make this more meaningful. Yeah. So focusing on these things are very important. Managing your attitudes and behaviors with your cross-functional teams, looking at collaboration, right, with cross-functional teams, telling them what is in for me, right, and being focused on the business and IT story to a larger extent could be a very important aspects to see this through thing. Thanks, Mike, for joining from Denver, Colorado. Mike is also a big fan of these simulation games. I hope that this gives you a part. So a lot of times when we talk about experimentation and failures, right? How do you foster a culture to experiment, fail, and learn to innovate? So I think there's a very important merit here. The simulation games are a fail-safe experimentation where you put them into a fail-safe environment. They practice, learn, they live, they have their fist punching at one end, and then they realize. And I think that's going to be a aha moment for us, right? No amount of experimentation can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong. So do not underestimate the power of a simulation game. It's like a hackathon or a game day or a chaos engineering that you would think about. It's just about getting people to come away from their comfort zone, right? And fostering a level of a celebration of having fun in helping each other. Um, I wanted to put this one into perspective. A lot of time, business and IT have their own goals, right? And typically, if you look at the four IT goals are too internally focused. As a result, they end up scoring their own goal, right? Very internally focused. And sometimes I tell people, and I talk with business leaders, and they say we have problem with IT in two fronts, right? Number one, they talk the language of technologists, so it just goes overhead, and they come during the budgeting season, they get the money and disappear. So we don't know what value are they creating. So they're still perceived to be order takers. So how do we get that seat at the table? How do you have that shared vision and values that you can focus on? Because we're just talking about keeping the lights on, right? BAU and stuff like that, right? So this is a kind of a way to help people that we are not fighting against business and IT or business and other functions, right? We are trying to create a cultural change, particularly in a hybrid workforce, in a manner that it will be more effective for us to work together and derive long-term results together, right? I love this quote that you can't think in long-term horizons, run around like a headless chicken, no clue about planning, so we have decided to make you as a CIO. Most of the times, business leaders sees IT is not seen as an added value partner to the business, right? And it gets frustrated. I had one of my client in Switzerland. He said, Suresh, thanks for the workshop on BRM and gamification. in the 140-year-old history, this is the first time that I've got a seat at the table. And we are now talking the language of the business. We are talking to be more strategic in nature. But it requires us to unlearn a few things, focus on seeing what is most important in the current journey, and start collaborating about it. So there's a lot of work to be done. I tell you, with this lot of pressure and deliverables, collaboration, communication becomes super important, right? So integrate your learning and working, measure behavior and impact, reward people with the right level of attributes. And a lot of companies want people to have ownership, right? The sense of ownership and responsibility to take care. If you're an owner of the ticket, it's not just about resolving the ticket and do it, because that's what we talk about in XLA, right? You raise a ticket and you're working on response time, resolution time. Are you even worried about what will happen during the time where the ticket was raised till it resolved? What's going to be the customer experience? So we have not a lot of idea about things, and it's going to be very difficult, right? So these are some of those areas that we see to do it. Bring an end-to-end uh, work together, have a sense of urgency, focus on shared goals, empower people, and overcome resistance, right? People don't resist change, but they resist being changed. So how do we make that all work? So these are some of those attributes that you can create as part of the simulation and gamification session. Um, these are some of the reports, like if you are doing a customer sat, or if you're doing a 360-degree view, you can measure definitive results in how things are working across, right? This is one recent example where we did in California with a client of us. This is like the Mars lander simulation. So we have like Kanban boards. There are you're on a flight trajectory. You kind of look at the fuel, the amps, the location, and stuff like that to build on. And these are handicappers. They are change management boards. They are looking at their change calendar and seeing how they can all work together. This is the entire crew. After we did this Mars lander simulation, they are meeting it for the first time. This was in Watsonville in California. And one of the things that was they said was, there was a six people from IT, six people from six people from HR. I love that whole learning model, right? So you're not looking at one team, but you're bringing in all the cross-functional team from sales, marketing, HR, and that's a great way to bring in that level of cross-functional collaboration. So if you're looking at simulation games, don't put all the people into one game, right? Look at opportunities where we can bring in cross-functional teams, different departments, even vendors and suppliers, to see how it can work through it. So this is kind of the grab a pizza, kind of working with people and having fun, right? And it was a great experience. So this is like how the tables are arranged. They work on certain cards. There is a flip chart, and every round they see something happening around. They look at the scoreboard, how much money they made, what was the loss in revenue. So there's some tangible KPIs and KRAs that we measure during the course, so that people are able to relate it better and how their experience could be, right? So remember this one. If you want to really look at why gamification, I tell people, happy people create happy business. If you take care of the people, people will take care of your business. And that's super important. And if you are looking at employee engagement initiatives, if you want to make sure that the people are empowered, people feel a sense of belonging, I think take care of them, right? I posted on LinkedIn a few days back, and the last week I said, um, you have to train people well enough, right, that they will leave, but you have created an environment that is so good that they will not leave, right? Richard Branson says that you need to create people, all right, provide them everything that is required for them to bloom, right? And create an environment where you are giving the best that they would not go. In fact, when I was part of HP, I still remember I worked in an organization and then with another organization and came back to HP, because in those days HP was the place to look forward, right? We had some great fun. It was a completely human centric world in the way that we operated, and we had so much fun, right? So really important is to create happy people and happy business, right? So I wanted to kind of switch gears and do a small demo, but I wanted to give you this attribute. This is the top 10 skills of 2023 according to the World Economic Forum. And if you look at a lot of these skills are not just about technical skills. They're talking about analytical thinking, creative thinking, leadership and social influence, curiosity, motivation, right? And how are we going to inculcate these skills, right? There are cognitive skills, right? How are we going to do that? How there are some things which are self-focused skills, some are management skills. So how do we go about doing that? And it's also very interesting. It says that 44% of workers' core skills are expected to change in the next 5 years. With generative AI and chat GPT, you all know that reskilling is going to be the order of the day, right? We cannot afford to stay complacent about it because we don't know how much of our jobs are going to be relevant. Sometimes when I do these workshops, I ask people, how much are you confident that you will still remain relevant with all this part? That's $1 million question to answer, because it's not just about technical skills. The human skills and the skills of empathy becomes a lot more important, isn't it? So I want to understand from your perspective, from your organization's perspective, are you also seeing there is a real need to reskill people, right? Reskilling is not just on a technology front, it's on the human front, in the ability to understand and apply some of these things overallly, working through that. And that's very, very important to do it, right? So what we have done, and I want to do a demo now, is we have, in partnership with Axelium platform, we have identified that there's a lot of these critical skills are very important to inculcate with it, which is team members or middle managers or leaders to do that, right? So whatever skills we talked about, the critical analysis, problem solving, strategic thinking, adaptive thinking, systemic vision, creativity, decision making, this is super important. So depending on the role and the discipline that you all focus, I think these skills will have to be inculcated sooner or later. So we have provided a platform where we go and play games and understand how things work across. So we do this in a model of play, learn, and apply. So you can play on your laptop. You can actually see some of those conversations around a strategy game. It could be a board game. It could be a blocker. And I'll show you this part demo. You learn from that. So it could be anywhere between 40 minutes to an hour. Even you can do it 10 minutes. And every level goes a little tougher one by one, right? So you learn and apply what things, and we do a workshops part of it. You get a good dashboard of the profiles of the people. So, for example, you have your entire leadership minus one wants to go through a training. They can do it on their own demand, right? On their laptop, on their tablets, and then they give you a feedback. We understand their profile, how their skills are, and tell you what percentage are they working in and how they can be more meaningfully groomed. And that's a part that I think is going to be very important to see through this. And you get a great dashboard, right? It tells you about the top 3 people, have they completed the workshops, what kind of skills that they have. So you get a 360-degree view of how they work through, and then make it really manageable, right? So I'm going to kind of talk about now a demo of the things. I'm going to share my screen here, where I'm going to look at my Axelium Plus. So if you look at this one, this is a platform which is called Axelium Plus platform. We are a partner of Axelium, and what is happening is, depending on what is your current skills that you want to improvise, you have different games. Like, for example, a blocker game. It could be a crystal ball effort, and so on and so forth, that we can see depending on what you want. So you can first identify what skills are you looking at. Are you looking at for strategic thinking or analytical thinking, right? For example, you get blockers and you start to move it. So it's a kind of fun way of doing it. Overall, then we have decision making. So, for example, you have blockers at both stage, and you say how we can move from one level to another level, right? So think about all those strategies that we need to think, because you need to think out of the box. The current skill set will not help you to think, so you need to think different ways of working. And as you start to go through these round 1, 2, 3, and levels, you will see that you are much more understanding how we need to approach a problem, right? So it's a much more different way to get things around the principles, and find out, like, is it flexible thinking, change management? This has been a bigger problem for a lot of people, right? As we go to cloud, as we go to new ways of working, how are we handling change management? How are we thinking outside the box? How do you deal with pressure situations? How do you demonstrate situational leadership? So these are some things which are very important, in my opinion, that we need to inculcate, and that gives you an opportunity to see and work through it. And what you can do is define your thinking journey, right? So if I look at my journey, I can look at my journey map. Then I can say, okay, for customer A, I have these 10 games. So you can pick and choose what games are going to be important for your customers, and they can actually play the game. And we can have learning interventions after every game or after every workshop. So we can combine this with a workshop on analytical thinking, which is just 90 minutes. So they have played the game, they've got the results, and then what next? So if you can also see this, the other aspect that we are seeing here is the reports, right? So you get, if you are part of a human resource leader, if you're a business leader, you get to know how the teams are performing, what is the kind of distribution, what are the top leaders, and you can go into much more detail of the ways to do that. So I can look at my personal report, I can look at my comparison. So, for example, are you doing it in what's your average score across different departments? Are you looking at the average score? Are you looking at analytical ability? Are you looking at a specific geography? Okay, if it's in Latin America, how does it work? If it's in Europe, how does it work? So that also could be a good understanding of where are your managers today and what does it take them to move in that particular journey forward. And it's going to be a lot of fun in how we can address this whole thing, because that's the way we learn, in the way of making this more practical in how they see through this. So I want to kind of open it up for Q&A, and if you have questions, but this is a great way to have fun learning. Just focus on what you want to make a difference, what kind of cultural nuances that you want to make that, and how do we kind of make this work more meaningfully in the scheme of things to appreciate and apply. And it's also that if there are any bottlenecks, there are things we can work that in a behind the scenes, because that way we will know that this is not just about technology, this is not just about deliverables. It's all about understanding the human emotions, understanding what works and what does work, what doesn't work in the context of an organization, and taking that steps, taking that extra ways to see how we can make that more meaningfully delivered. And that's where I think this is going to be a very great opportunity to do business games and simulation. If you've had experiences, or if you've got questions on what we discussed, I'll be more than happy to ask. So I will open it up for future for everybody to ask your questions. I hope with the people who attended, you saw value in the simulation games. Do you have any questions that I could address in terms of business games, simulations for corporates, for B2B or B2C? I'll be more than happy to take any questions. And this will be available as part of a recording later as well. So if you have any questions, you can reach. And if you want us to help you in some of those simulation games, we have a complete gamification portal. We would be more than happy to run through some of the games that will be useful for customers, partners. And if you want to be associated with us to take this beyond your organizations, we'd be more than happy, because we think there is a huge demand for experiential learning, having fun in the whole process, but also implementing them in a manner that it is a fail-safe experimentation, right? And it's very important for us to have fun in the process. So as you start to go into the festive season, celebrating your Christmas and New Year, I want you to just reflect upon what are you going to do differently next year for you, for your team, for your organization, which will get you more empowered in a manner that we can apply some of these games, create the culture change, empower people, and also bring in that desirable behaviors that you have never been able to do it, because we are trying to do a stereotypic way of training and competency assessment. It's a kind of a boring stuff, right? We need to have a better way to inculcate a fail-safe experimentation and have fun in the process, right? So I'll be happy to see if you have any questions, Jeff, Mike. Rao, in what you discussed, you have any things? Was it useful? Wanted to kind of take a pulse from the other audience who have just joined in. If you have just joined in and tuned in about gamification, any questions, we'd be more than happy to have. Right? Thanks, Mike. A huge fan of simulations, Suresh, and he says that's a big thing. And I think we hope to do more, Mike, as you are a big proponent of doing that. Some of these things we need to do more across the United States and across North America, because there's a considerable amount of people who would like to get benefit out of that, and we think that's a great way to do it. That's how we started off, and we have had now success in doing some of these workshops with people around that, and we hope we can do more of these simulations as we go into this journey across and see the value for people, right? So that's been our session that I want to cover for you on the business simulations, the value of it, be it with physical options, experiential options. I have some 10 boxes that I can see of boxes which I can go and play. But I've actually been doing simulation games for the last close to about 9, 10 years now, and it's been phenomenal, right? And every time we have played the game, people have said we love it. When can we do it more? So we hope, as part of Top Solutions getting into a 10th year, we can serve more people, we can serve more customers, and create more value, and also improve the overall morale of the team. Remember, happy people means happy business. So let's make and create people who are going to be stalwarts this festive season. I want to wish you everybody a great festive season, and also, more importantly, spending some time to reflect for all the things you're grateful this year as we complete our Thanksgiving week, as we look at spending time with family and friends. We should start thinking about how can we become better playing the infinite game, being a better version of ourselves and doing that. Thanks, Jeff. He says, appreciate the informative overview. Look forward to being more involved with doing this. And absolutely. And Jeff does a lot of work in his part of coaching, consulting, and IT training leaders. And we hope that we can create more people inspired by this and create a difference. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching this and spending 1 hour with me. And I hope that your weekend goes really well. And I'm wishing everyone a happy festive season, happy holidays. It's a great time to do. We at Top Solutions will probably shut down after the 23rd. We're going to get our colleagues spend their time with family, and I hope you will give that one thing which really inspired me in the HP when I was part of HP, which was my last job with HP before I started Top Solutions along with Satya, was the furlough period. Every December, we used to have a week shutdown where we used to enjoy. And I thought, when we start a company, we want to give back that idea of people taking time off with their family, getting them rejuvenated, and come back with renewed enthusiasm in the new year. I look forward to seeing you in a new year, because we're going to launch the AI Ops Foundation. So I wanted to just give you a preview that we're going to do a AI Ops Foundation workshop on the 13th and 14th of January for APJ time zone. We are also planning something for North America, but this is a great opportunity. I'm going to personally deliver the AOP Foundation. We see a lot of interest for people to move from site to lab to engineering to observability to AOps. So we are one of the very few who are doing globally the AOP Foundations. I look forward to seeing you. If you have any questions, do log into Top Solutions or info@topsolutions.com, and we'll be more than happy to take your request. So with that, I wish you everyone a happy day ahead. If it's morning for Rao, mid-afternoon or evening, I wish you everybody a great, successful journey. And I look forward to seeing you all in January. Until then, stay safe and have a lovely evening today. Thank you so much.